All right, YouTube. Bill Kristol a few days ago talked about an independent campaign that would be well run, be a good candidate, be well funded, well-oiled machine, sort of, and we're gonna ram it through the American people. And Bill Kristol, of course, is from the National Review. Now, you may remember the National Review as the publication that became a little bit of a laughingstock, specifically because all these like former partisan Republicans, the second that Trump looked inevitable, they said, oh, fuck the Republican Party, fuck Donald Trump, never Trump, hashtag never Trump. You may remember the National Review for that era. They're a dying publication. Their average reader, their average user is apparently in their 60s or 70s. That's a little bit of a problem. See, when people get to that age, they begin dying off. Now, maybe I have subscribers in that age range. I hope you live to see 120 and remain healthy that entire time, but let's face it, not everybody can be that lucky. Now, the power of Satan will give you strength. As far as the National Review, they're still relying on Jesus, who died in his 30s, so I think there's going to be a fucking problem here. But they've named David French as the prospective independent candidate. And of course, they had several. It was funny because Fox, when they spoke of this, or yesterday, I was going to say or earlier today, but yesterday they did. I lost track of time. I can't help it. They dragged two people on there, both of whom were from the National Review, to talk about why it was a great idea. And the first person, who's the editor-at-large of the National Review, said, yeah, I like David French. I'm not a really big fan of Trump. I'm not going to vote for him. Don't worry, I won't vote for Hillary either, which you probably will. But I didn't tell him to do this. And then the other dude they had on there, I can't remember his name, he was saying, oh, well, Trump is just a horrible person. Everything's wrong with him. Well, if you're a partisan Republican, for the last however many elections, these dudes both look like they're in their 50s, maybe early 60s. So it's been quite a few elections. They say, I'm a Republican. I'm a partisan Republican. All of a sudden, Trump emerges and their partisanship breaks down and they become never Trumpers. Now, there's a growing never Hillary movement as well. I think it will be far, far larger than the Never Trump movement. I have a feeling that many millions of Democrats will not support Hillary Clinton. Her charade is wearing thin already, and it's not even technically the general election. She hasn't secured the nomination yet. It's going to be a problem for her. As far as this David French character is concerned, he's a veteran of Iraq, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. He's got some experience at doing the things that he does. But right now, there's no room for an independent candidate. Trump has polarized things to the point where he has most of the partisan Republicans are lined up. Increasingly, business Democrats, certain young leftists have joined him as well. An increasing share of the independent base. Hillary Clinton has most of the partisan Democrats lined up, although she's sort of hemorrhaging some of those that are on the fence. And then Gary Johnson appears. Gary Johnson, despite the slight fiasco, admittedly, the slight fiasco that was the Libertarian Convention with the male stripper and so forth, despite that, he's still polling at around 5%, which is far better than the Libertarian Party did in 2012. And it's probably going to go up. As his name gets out there, he's finally, for the first time I can recollect, the Libertarian Party is actually being put on the polls. Out of Michigan, we've seen it. Johnson, I think, was at 10% there. At Georgia, I believe he was at 5%. And what I said was this, and I'll go back to French in a moment. Gary Johnson takes more support from the Democrats than he does from the Republicans. If people are worried Gary Johnson's going to be a spoiler and give this to Hillary Clinton, no, he's going to be a spoiler and give it to Donald Trump. I think that's fairly clear. That's why he's doing better. When people are polled, he is doing better in blue states because younger Democratic voters that can't support Trump are jumping aboard Gary Johnson's campaign, specifically the under 30s. That's his core voting bloc, along with libertarian partisans, which, I mean, they are partisan. If they're like, oh, I've voted libertarian since the 80s, you're a partisan too. I may not disagree with you on a lot of issues, but you're still a partisan. You still have party loyalty. or certain independent groups, younger independent voters. That's basically Gary Johnson's block. He may expand, he may contract, but he's taking more votes from Hillary Clinton than he is from Donald Trump. He'll probably hand Trump the election as though it wasn't likely he was going to win anyway. But an independent candidate, regardless of the funding he is privy to, is not necessarily going to do well, because for most Republicans, they have a candidate. They obviously don't care that he's Trump. They're obviously not never Trumpers. Now you have this independent candidate saying, well, I'm a better Republican than Trump, but you're not in the Republican Party. Therein lies the problem. A lot of those are partisans. They won't vote for you because you're not running with an R next to your name. A lot of them are Republicans that are younger. They don't have strong feelings about maybe like gay marriage or transgendered stuff or something. They're not going to abandon Trump for you. Maybe they're business Democrats. They're not going to abandon Trump for you. They abandoned Hillary for Trump primarily because he has a more pro-business message. So what's David French? What is his actual voting base is the question. I will go further and try to be more sophisticated here in my explanation than those that appeared on Fox, Herman Cain, and then the two folks from the National Review. A more sophisticated way of explaining it is you have to have some sort of voting base in order to actually wage a campaign. The only base I can see for this individual, for David French, is those within the Republican Party. They are partisan Republicans that nonetheless have become nonpartisan because Trump happens to be the nominee. You are looking at a sum total of some hundreds of thousands of people, maybe a couple million people. Less than 2% of the U.S. population, I would predict. David French cannot wage the sort of campaign necessary to destroy Trump, to destroy anybody else. He'll come in fourth place behind Gary Johnson, if he's lucky. If he's unlucky, he'll come in fifth behind Jill Stein. This campaign that he's talking about, whether people think it's laudable or not because they have a stick up their ass about Trump and they don't like Hillary. If you don't like Trump and Hillary, vote for a third party, because there are established third parties. There's a Green Party, there's a Libertarian Party, there's a Constitutionalist Party. You'd be better off voting for yourself than bothering to vote for David French, because it's worthless. All he stands for is the status quo of the Republicans anyway. One of the reasons Trump won, and here's where Herman Cain is technically correct, he spoke about these people from National Review being in denial. Well, yes, they are. Here's the thing. Trump won handily. He's going to go well beyond most people's expectations. Not necessarily mine, but certainly the expectations of Nate Silver or Obama or Jeb Bush or somebody like that. The reason he went so far beyond, the reason why he won, is that people don't like the Republican establishment. So if somebody who has an outdated sort of 90s era Republican mentality, the mentality of sort of the Bush years or Bob Dole or something like that, and they're trying to apply that, your mentality being outdated is why Trump supplanted all of the establishment candidates within the Republican camp. So trying to set up your own independent candidate is going to do nothing. No, it won't hand Hillary the election. Gary Johnson's already handing it to Donald Trump, let's face it. And by the way, to those who may ask, I am slightly worried about Gary Johnson and Bill Weld's behavior in the last couple of days. I'm worried about what Bill Weld said earlier. I'm worried about the fact that a male stripper was apparently up on stage at the Libertarian Convention. Not because I have a moral onus against it, but it just looks bad publicity-wise. I am worried about the fact that Peterson tried to give him a flintlock rifle. He took it and threw it in the trash. That seems a little bit odd to me. I certainly would have accepted. Even if you're going to sell it on eBay afterwards, at least accept the thing and don't be a total asshole. I am worried about that. And if at the end of the day, Weld does what I'm increasingly worried he may do and secure funding from traditionally neocon groups, I will abandon the Libertarian Party and I will vote for Donald Trump. I won't vote for Hillary. I'll vote for Donald Trump. I don't want to do that. I want to support the libertarian movement. The problem is Gary Johnson, in only a couple of days, he's making it a little bit difficult. Bill Weld, fundraising is great, but don't suck at the teats of David Koch or some of these other corporatists, and then speak about Social Security being an entitlement when it's something people pay into that should be breaking even if Congress would leave it alone, and call that a libertarian platform. That's deeply disturbing to me. I'm beginning to wonder if my support for Gary Johnson might not wane over the course of this election. My advice to him is don't take the Cox money. At the very least, keep your fundraising clean. Keep your nose clean. You can make mistakes as long as the fundraising apparatus doesn't lead people to believe you're being controlled by corporate interests. If that happens, the Libertarian Party will fail. The Libertarian Party, for the first time, has the possibility of breaking into the polling region where it can finally be part of all the debates. It can be privy to all of the things that the other major parties are privy to. If Gary Johnson pisses that away, or Bill Weld pisses that away, they will be forever considered traitors to the libertarian movement, jokes, living, walking incarnations of a bad joke. So my caution to them is don't do that. But as for David French, he's no threat to anyone. He'd come in at most 4th place and probably 5th behind Jill Stein. It would be rather sad to see him waste his time for somebody who's a decorated veteran to listen to a bunch of idiots at the National Review, the Glenn Beck crowd, and say, oh, well, don't worry, you can make it as an independent candidate. No, you can't. That's the point. The people, the partisans that would generally support your message have already found their candidate. A very slim minority, maybe like 1 out of every 20 Republicans right now, may jump aboard with you. You're not going to get any independent or Democratic voters either, and you're not going to become an election spoiler, which is probably what Bill Kristol wants. That's about all. Peace.